The SCP Foundation has thousands of employees working across hundreds of facilities worldwide, but most of them don't know the Foundation even exists. That's the reality of Level 0 clearance, the lowest tier in the organization's security hierarchy. Today, I'm breaking down every single security clearance level in the SCP Foundation, from the janitors who never see an SCP file to the overseers who know humanity's darkest secrets, starting with the people who literally work for the end of the world without realizing it. Level 0, for official use only. Level 0 personnel are the Foundation's invisible workforce. Clerks, custodians, logistics handlers, administrative assistants, people doing completely mundane jobs in facilities that might be 3 floors above a reality-bending nightmare, and they have absolutely no idea. The official designation is for official use only, which is corporate speak for you don't need to know anything. These employees work in low-security sites or front companies. Some get paychecks from what they think is a normal logistics firm. They file paperwork, they mop floors, they move sealed crates with innocuous labels, and the Foundation makes sure they never learn what's actually inside. Many Level 0 staff don't even receive keycards. No badge means no doors open, no databases recognize you, no classified systems acknowledge your existence. If you encounter a misrouted document, it's been pre-redacted into meaninglessness. Blacked out names, vague euphemisms about chemical spills instead of containment breaches. Here's the thing though, just because Level 0 personnel don't know anything doesn't mean they're safe. If a hostile force compromises a Level 0 worker, they could plant devices, move equipment, bypass perimeters. The Foundation accepts this because the alternative, telling every janitor about the anomalies 3 floors down, would create far worse problems. Cognitive hazards spread through knowledge. But if you think working in blissful ignorance sounds bad, wait until you see what happens when the Foundation decides you need to know just enough to be useful. Level 1 Confidential. Level 1 staff work in proximity to anomalies but have no direct or informational access to them, and that's somehow worse than knowing nothing at all. These are the janitors mopping floors outside containment cells, the logistics handlers moving sealed crates stamped with codes they're never allowed to decrypt, the maintenance crew fixing pipes 3 hallways away from something that requires immediate specialist attention. They know something is behind that blast door, they hear the alarms, they see armed guards escorting people in hazmat suits. But if they ask what's going on, the answer is always the same: need to know basis, and they don't need to know. Some handbooks are blunt about this. Level 1 workers are labeled as expendable, not critical to strategic operations, easily replaced. If you're expendable, why are you working this close to things that can kill you in ways you're structurally barred from understanding? The Foundation's answer appears to be that someone has to keep the lights on, and it might as well be people who won't leak secrets they were never told. You're walking past reinforced doors every day, hearing muffled sounds you can't identify, watching colleagues vanish into restricted wings and return looking shaken. Certain corridors are colder than they should be. Security never quite meets your eyes when you ask why an entire floor was evacuated last Tuesday, but every time you get close to a real answer, the shutters come down. Clearance required. Move along. At least you're not in the dark like Level 0. But if you think living in a liminal state of half-knowledge is uncomfortable, wait until you hear about the people who actually have to touch the damn things. Level 2. Restricted. Level 2 is the most common clearance among research staff, field agents, and containment specialists requiring direct access to anomalous information. And before you assume that means junior status, hear me out, because that's not how this works at all. Level 2 is granted to personnel who require direct access to information about anomalous objects and entities in containment. This is the baseline requirement for people who touch, study, or protect SCPs. You're not running the site or making strategic decisions, but you are the person standing in the containment chamber, running the experiment or responding to the initial breach. And that makes Level 2 the workhorse of day-to-day anomaly operations. Most iconic safe and routine Euclid SCPs are primarily handled by Level 2 teams. SCP-173, the statue that snaps necks when you blink. Level 2 staff clean the chamber. A reality-bending Euclid object that needs weekly maintenance? Level 2 containment specialists handle the procedure. The Foundation doesn't send site directors to scrub floors or recalibrate failsafes. It sends people who know exactly what they're doing and are trusted to follow protocol without constant supervision. But here's where it gets serious. A compromised level 2 containment specialist could misconfigure failsafes, skip crucial steps, or falsify sensor readings leading to breaches. You're the one running the sensors, maintaining the locks, feeding the entity. If you go rogue, or if something gets in your head, you can cause catastrophic damage before anyone notices. Now, the misconception: clearance level and rank are distinct. A veteran site accountant might remain level 2 forever because their job simply doesn't require broader access. Clearance is about what you need to know, not how important you are. But if you think being the backbone of containment operations sounds comfortable, wait until you hear about the people making site-wide decisions while never being allowed near an anomaly at all. Level 3, Secret. Level 3 is where things get serious. Before you start thinking this is just another desk job with slightly better access, hear me out. Level 3 clearance is granted to senior security and research personnel requiring in-depth data about source, recovery circumstances, and long-term planning. But here's where it gets interesting. Many mobile task force operatives possess Level 3 despite being battlefield grunts, because they must understand tactical behavior and kill conditions of high-risk anomalies. You can't neutralize a reality-bending nightmare if you don't know exactly how it rewrites physics. Level 3 holders review entire SCP histories, recovery missions, early failures, casualties, cross-links to other SCPs or groups of interest, all of it. This is the tier where you stop just reading containment procedures and start understanding why those procedures exist. You're looking at incident reports from breaches that killed entire teams. You're reading about the site that got vaporized before anyone realized the anomaly wasn't contained at all. You're connecting dots between anomalies that officially have nothing to do with each other, and that makes you dangerous in the wrong hands. A subverted level 3 security chief could reassign patrols, alter access lists, or misclassify threats across multiple anomalies. They could create gaps in coverage wide enough to drive a Keter breach through, which is exactly why level 3 personnel are both trusted with more context and exposed to greater risk. You're high enough to know secrets, low enough to still be sacrificed when the situation demands it. But if you think operational command is rough, wait until you see the people who run entire sites. Level 4, Top Secret. Level 4 is where the weight of command crushes you. Site directors, security directors, MTF commanders, all holding hundreds of lives in their hands and making decisions that would break most people. And I can prove it. A site director with level 4 clearance doesn't just manage paperwork. They decide who gets evacuated during a breach and who gets sealed inside to die buying time for everyone else. They know the exact radiation thresholds, the containment failure cascades, the personnel replacement timelines. They can read files on dozens of Keter-class objects, access intelligence about groups of interest, and authorize lethal force or experimental procedures that would never see daylight. Most senior research staff, security officers, and mobile task force operatives hold level 4, making it the clearance of people who actually run the day-to-day machinery. But here's where it gets complicated. Level 4 holders may know dozens of Keter projects on their site, yet they remain completely ignorant of SCP-001 proposals, cosmic scope anomalies, and the true existential contingencies known only to O5 Council. They have breadth without total depth. A site director can tell you the exact behavioral triggers of every dangerous entity in their facility, but they might have zero idea that reality itself has been rebooted multiple times, and that makes a compromised level 4 official catastrophic. They could alter resource allocations, disable response teams, manipulate logs, authorize or delay critical containment decisions across an entire facility. If an info hazard gets inside a level 4 mind, their authority becomes a weapon against the Foundation itself. Level 4 is the clearance of people who know enough to understand how bad things really are, but not enough to see the full cosmic horror waiting at level 5, which is, you know, not ideal. Level 5, Thaumiel. Level 5 is the clearance of Overwatch, and I can prove it. This is where almost nothing gets redacted, where the full horror of what the Foundation really does becomes unavoidable, and where the psychological toll of knowing every single secret starts eating people alive. Level 5 is given to the highest ranking personnel in the entire Foundation. The O5 Council, high-level regional directors, select ethics committee leaders. That's it. These people collectively know every secret the Foundation holds, every reality-threatening anomaly, every existential contingency plan, every dirty cover-up, every failed attempt that cost millions of lives, every secret treaty with hostile groups. They have effectively unlimited access to all strategic and sensitive data, which sounds powerful until you realize what that actually means for a human mind. Traditional keycards don't exist at this level. Level 5 holders use biometric identification, memetic safeguards, and in some cases lethal countermeasures embedded in the access systems themselves. Because if a level 5 individual is compromised, the threat isn't just local, it's existential. One corrupted O5 member could engineer scenarios that bypass humanity's last-ditch safeguards entirely. Here's where it gets dark. The O5 Council are deliberately kept away from anomalies. They rule from informational distance, using reports and intermediaries. Because their knowledge is too valuable to risk contamination, they make decisions about who lives, who dies, and who gets sacrificed to buy time. But most of them will never smell the inside of a breached containment chamber. That separation creates a grotesque irony. The people with the most power to authorize monstrous experiments are also the most insulated from their consequences. At level 5, you stop being entirely human in a functional sense. You become a node in a system designed to prevent the end of everything, and that system will do whatever it takes to keep you operational. But if you think knowing all the secrets is bad, wait until you hear about the clearance level that technically doesn't exist for any human being, but shows up on the most dangerous documents in the Foundation. Level 6, Cosmic Top Secret. Level 6, Cosmic Top Secret exists in a liminal space between lore and meta classification. In some systems, no personnel officially hold it. It's just a document tag, a conceptual firewall around knowledge, deemed too dangerous for almost anyone to hold in full. In others, it's granted exclusively to the Administrator and O5 Council, reserved for projects whose compromise would catastrophically damage the Foundation or humanity beyond what even level 5 leaks might cause. Here's the thing, specific SCPs like SCP-5759 and Project Vishak explicitly classify deeper information under Level 6 Cosmic Top Secret. The surface level data is Level 5. The universe-breaking implications are Level 6. This isn't about trusting someone with more secrets. It's about protecting secrets so dangerous they require automatic countermeasures, cognitomoles, and extreme air gapping just to store. Files bearing a Level 6 label are protected by both technological and memetic barriers. Some are encoded in ways that even high clearance readers cannot fully comprehend without undergoing controlled exposure protocols. Others track biosignatures and remotely terminate unauthorized users. The entire architecture assumes that if someone accesses this information improperly, the consequences are existential. The community debates whether level 6 is canon or fan-driven elaboration. Purists point out that early SCP documentation only mentions levels 0 through 5. Others embrace it as a narrative flag for cosmic scope anomalies, a way to signal when an article operates on universe-level stakes rather than merely global catastrophe. Both interpretations have merit. What's clear is that level 6, whether you assign it to people or just to files, represents the absolute edge of what the Foundation is willing to document at all. But if you think universe-level secrets are disturbing, wait until you hear about the people the Foundation considers essential enough to never let near an anomaly in the first place. Class of personnel. Here's where the Foundation's logic gets beautifully contradictory. Class A personnel hold the highest information clearance in the entire organization. They know every nightmare hiding in every containment cell on every continent, and they are absolutely forbidden from going anywhere near any of it. Not sometimes. Not unless it's really important. Under zero circumstances. These are the people the Foundation has decided it literally can't afford to lose. So it wraps them in bubble wrap and locks them in a bunker while everyone else does the dying. The O5 Council members are always Class A, the Administrator, certain key ethics committee figures, a handful of ultra-specialized strategists whose brains are considered irreplaceable assets. These are the people who authorize site-wide nuclear fail-safes, approve experiments that could end civilizations, and decide which mobile task forces get sent into meat grinders. All from sealed situation rooms, reading compiled reports, never once stepping foot inside a containment wing. The people making the call all to sacrifice an entire facility full of researchers have never smelled what a breached containment chamber actually smells like. They exist in a world of documents and decisions, completely insulated from the physical reality of what those decisions produce. But here's the thing, their physical insulation doesn't reduce the danger if they're compromised. It magnifies it. If something gets to them through a remote memetic vector, an info hazard buried in a report, or just good old-fashioned political manipulation, the damage is catastrophic. A compromised O5 could systematically alter strategic directives across the entire Foundation. They could deprioritize containment of a world-ending anomaly, and nobody beneath them would have the clearance to realize the orders were wrong until it was far too late, which is, you know, not ideal. But if Class A personnel are the ones the Foundation can't afford to lose, wait until you hear about the ones it can. Class B personnel. Every Foundation site has people who aren't famous, aren't making the big calls from behind sealed bunker doors, but whose absence would quietly destroy everything. That's Class B. Class B personnel are classified as essential to local Foundation operations, not globally irreplaceable like Class A, not strategically untouchable. But lose one of these people, and a specific site starts falling apart in ways nobody notices until it's way too late. We're talking mid to high level administrators, technical specialists, facility physicians, operations managers, the people who actually keep the lights on and the containment procedures properly maintained. The Foundation knows it. Here's the thing, because they're so valuable locally, the Foundation puts a hard limit on what they can interact with. Class B personnel may only access anomalies that have already passed quarantine and been fully cleared of any mind-affecting or memetic properties. Zero exceptions. You don't let your chief logistics officer walk into a room with something that could rewrite his priorities without him knowing, and that constraint exists for a very good reason. A compromised Class B staffer doesn't cause a dramatic explosive breach. It's worse. A subverted medical director starts misdiagnosing memetic exposure as routine stress. A turned operations manager quietly delays critical supply shipments. The whole site's safety culture degrades slowly, like rust eating through a support beam. By the time anyone notices, the structural damage is already done. That's why during any breach, Class B personnel are prioritized for immediate evacuation. The Foundation would rather lose a hallway full of armed guards than one experienced facility physician who knows every staff member's exposure record. Cold math, but it's the math that keeps sites functional. They're not glamorous, but without them, the entire local operation collapses into chaos, which is, you know, not ideal when you're sitting on top of a building full of monsters. But if Class B are the people too important to risk, wait until you hear about the ones the Foundation throws directly into the fire. Class C personnel. Class C is where the real work happens. These are the people who actually walk into containment chambers, run experiments, and spend their days surrounded by things that could rewrite their brain chemistry without them ever noticing. Class C personnel have direct access to most anomalies not deemed strictly hostile, and that includes researchers, lab technicians, containment specialists, and security staff physically inside containment zones on a regular basis. Think of them as the working interface between the Foundation and everything it keeps locked up. Class B staff get filtered, sanitized exposure. Class C staff get the raw, uncut version. They're transcribing outputs from reality-altering objects, running assays on fluids that shouldn't exist, and maintaining sensors in rooms where time occasionally forgets which direction it's supposed to go, which is, you know, not ideal. Here's where it gets complicated. Their continual proximity to anomalies makes them the most likely personnel to be affected by subtle cognitohazards, psychological erosion, or creeping indoctrination by sentient SCPs. A Class C researcher might spend 6 months working with a seemingly cooperative entity and not realize their opinions about containment have been slowly, carefully adjusted by the thing they're studying. They start advocating for looser restrictions. They conceal minor breaches. They genuinely believe they're acting rationally the entire time. The Foundation knows this. Any Class C personnel exposed to potential mind-affecting properties are subject to mandatory quarantine and psychiatric evaluation, and if things go badly enough, they get temporarily reclassified as Class E, essentially flagged as possibly contaminated, do not trust until further notice. If they get cleared, they return to duty. If some fans see Class C as the coveted assignment, the one that gets you access to the most fascinating anomalies in existence, Others see it as a career that slowly eats you alive from the inside out. Both interpretations are probably correct, but if you think Class C has it rough, wait until you hear about the personnel classification the Foundation designed to be completely disposable. Class D personnel. Class D personnel are, without question, the single most disturbing thing about the SCP Foundation. Not any anomaly, not any eldritch horror lurking in a containment cell. The fact that this organization, whose entire mission is protect humanity, runs an industrial-scale program of using human beings as disposable crash test dummies. Here's how it works. Class D, the D standing for disposable, are expendable individuals recruited specifically to interact with the most dangerous anomalies the Foundation contains. Cater class nightmares, the stuff that kills, mutates, or psychologically destroys anyone who gets near it. And instead of sending in robots or I don't know, literally anything else, the Foundation sends in people. Hey, go touch the statue that snaps your neck when you blink. For science, they're typically pulled from death row inmates, which the Foundation uses as moral justification. But here's where it gets complicated. During times of duress, Protocol 12 kicks in, and suddenly the recruitment pool expands to include political prisoners, refugees, and civilians quietly transferred into Foundation custody. So much for the moral high ground. Once inside, Class D gets zero clearance. They don't read files, they don't get briefings, they get an orange jumpsuit and instructions that boil down to walk into that room and tell us what happens. And at the end of each month, they're supposedly terminated after amnestic treatment. Supposedly, because SCP-2193 reveals that the monthly termination protocol is itself an info hazard. The belief that D-Class are killed every 30 days is a mimetic compulsion affecting Foundation staff. Nobody actually knows what happens to these people. The story the Foundation tells itself about its own disposable workforce might be a lie it's being forced to believe. That is genuinely one of the most unsettling things in the entire SCP universe, and it has nothing to do with monsters. But if Class D represents the people the Foundation throws away, the next classification represents something arguably worse. The people the Foundation has already broken. Class E personnel. Most personnel classes are permanent labels that stick with you for your entire career, but Class E is different. It's a provisional classification applied to field agents and containment personnel exposed to potentially dangerous effects during initial securing of newly designated anomalies. The moment you suspect you might have been altered by an unknown anomaly, you stop being whatever you were before. You're Class E now. These personnel are quarantined, monitored, and screened for harmful changes in behavior, personality, or physiology. The classification formalizes that exposure itself becomes an attribute of the person. You breathed its air, you touched its surface, you read its text. Until proven otherwise, you are a potential carrier, and that stays true until psychiatric and medical staff clear you to return. Class E is temporary and event-driven. Once the situation resolves, personnel either revert to their prior class or are reassigned based on outcomes. But during quarantine, you live in enforced uncertainty. Your data access gets suspended. Your colleagues keep their distance. You sit in a white room wondering if the thing you can't remember is the thing that's already changed you. And even after you're cleared, the stigma lingers. Colleagues wonder whether clearance truly means clean, or if you remain a ticking time bomb, because mimetic and slow burn effects don't announce themselves. They wait. Class E exists to front load caution, to treat potential carriers as such until proven otherwise. What makes Class E unique is that it cuts across all other classifications. A Class C researcher, a Class B field agent, even a higher class individual can be flagged as Class E in an instant. It's the Foundation's admission that no amount of training, clearance, or authority makes you immune to the anomalous, and that the control system regulating both information flow and human exposure has one glaring vulnerability: the people inside it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.